So, hello everybody, and welcome to a video where I'll go over the many suggestions that I was able to gather through the last few weeks, just doing kinda searching on Google and asking on JSP. Specifically, the thread that I made on JSP gave a lot of suggestions, and yeah, I got a lot of good suggestions. I want to start here by saying that Blizzard should not change anything in Diablo Resurrected. They should do whatever they want to do with the game. We as players don't even have to demand anything, but if there were going to be any changes, why not just have them available now? Give our opinions and kind of just, guide their way towards what we as the community want. I still believe that there's going to be changes sometime down, maybe a year or two from now, when the game has gone a little bit older and the community maybe wants new changes to the Resurrected game. But yeah, again, they don't have to change anything and we shouldn't expect any changes, but I still want to at least gather feedback and leave my own opinions. But this video is also just going to be a bit of a talk video. You can just have it minimized, and yeah, please feel free to leave comments below if you have any suggestion that wasn't mentioned in the video now. I would love to know if you can gather even more, maybe hit that 50 mark suggestions and whatnot. But yeah, we will go on now in a slow way what I have gathered so far. So the first 8 suggestions are something that everyone should be able to agree on, something that is very modest, so I'm just gonna start with these 8 ones to not piss off people too much. Who knows if that is gonna be an issue. But these 8 suggestions here, credit by Goomshill on JSP. He's a PvPer, a lot of people are PvPers on JSP in general, but he has a lot of good insights here on bugs, simply just things that should have been fixed years ago but never really got fixed, or maybe bugs that are not that much known in the community. Obviously I didn't know about literally any one of these, so I'm not very experienced in these sort of areas in the PvP and so forth. But you can see something like missile skills other than double throw simply ignore their attack rating bonus, which won't work at all. They should get that attack rating bonus. Wow, okay, of course, wow, why is that a bug? Blessed aim and penetrate should be mutually exclusive. Of course they should, that would be fine, great change. Inferno active blast shouldn't deal half their intended damage, but Inferno monsters shouldn't have their damage doubled either. I didn't even know that was a thing, but that perhaps explains why Arctic Blast or Inferno is kinda crappy, even though they might have a lot of display damage or whatever. Sanctuary Hour should work, because right now it doesn't. I'm not really sure what he... Sanctuary Hour, I think it's the part of the attack rating part to undeads or something does not work, so it's kinda crippling, or not really boosting your damage. I think that's what he means with Sanctuary Hour should not work. I think I've heard about that before as well, where Sanctuary Hour has always been bugged. Fence shouldn't get interrupted by dodge evasion skills. Yeah, I didn't even know that was a thing, but that sucks. Of course it should be interrupted. All elemental assassin clause skills should be affected by a percentage of elemental skill affixes, unlike the current version where it varies on each skill or each charge. Phoenix Strike gets none of them. This sucks for something like Phoenix Strike, a build that I also tried to make work, so of course that should be fixed. Hunger shouldn't have its attacks fail depending on its percentage attack speed. Didn't even know that was a thing. It's always fun to kind of know about these bugs that you thought you knew, like the main bugs in this game, but no. Skeleton mages of the poison variation shouldn't have their damage and duration fixed or something, because I'm pretty sure then he says it, because I'm pretty sure a level 50 necromancer that does 312 fire shouldn't deal 26.5 DPS for 5.5 minutes. Yeah. This is obviously a bug, and it would make a lot of changes, or would make a lot of sense to change skeleton mages to also make them better, and at least just fixing the bug, because skeleton mages have obviously always been the worst part of a necromancer's summon in general. But yeah, I think these 8 changes are something that everyone should agree that bugs like these ones, such as Sanctuary Hour has always been bugged, doesn't really work properly. Those should just be fixed. But those were the 8 easy changes. Let's hope that everyone can at least agree on something like these ones. This was suggested by Cheating Death on GSP. Stackable runes and gems. We heard a lot about this. A lot of people also suggested this one. I personally would like it. It just makes clutter that much easier, and also it makes trading easier, because you know that right now items sells for maybe 1,000 high runes or 10,000 high runes if they're really GG or whatever. They could be maybe even 100,000 high runes. Right now we can only put 40 single items into the trade window as it is right now. It sucks. So I would love stackable runes and gems just to make trading easier and inventory management. I think a lot of people will agree on this as well, just to make trading easier and also make muling easier and whatnot. And then this was created by Trivalas on JSP. Improved lobby / sorting system filtering time and player count. I would love this. Oh, this would be so good. Imagine you only want to see PvP games, so you don't have to scroll through all the other types of games that you don't want to see. Also player count, it's a little typo there, but player count means that you can see only player like 1 games, only player 7 games, so you only see games that are nearly full or whatever. And also other things like time he mentions and whatnot. I would love this. Oh, it would be so good to just only search for trade games, PvP games, or bail runs or whatever, and you could perhaps just be in the search field or whatever, and then type bail run, and then have a little drop down window, and it kind of filters you into only showing bail. That would improve the already awesome lobby system that we have in Diablo 2. This would of course be a lot of work for the developers to kind of do a filtering system, would be a lot of back-end stuff and whatnot, but I would love an even improved lobby system. However, the lobby system is already very good in Diablo 2. It is the best lobby system of any RPG ever made, and don't argue about that. It is. There's no good lobby system in Path of Exile or whatever. So yeah, next system here, or next suggestion, is done by I don't even think I got the credit on here. Oh, sorry, I actually think I missed the credit on this one. But oh, this was actually maybe my own, but yeah, I think this one was my own. I have always talked about I would love a player's aid command for online games. The game is already too easy once you get like GG gear with a little bit of an overpowered build like a Hammer Paladin Javason or whatever. I would love a player's aid command that maybe even goes up to players 20 for online as well. Obviously this would have a lot of effect on like botting economy, botting in general, XP grinding, solo and whatnot. That would be a lot of like for instance, you say you only play with 3 people, but you can then gain as much XP as if you were 8 people. Like there are some, of course, like changes that will really mix up kind of like how the game is now in Diablo 2. Again, players 8 would of course increase loot and XP and whatnot if you don't know about that. But yeah, I would love it at least up to players 8 command for online. And then potentially in the future, I would love if you can just get a scalable difficulty up to say players 20. And then I have a little note here. Yeah, I wrote this one, I remember now. This would also make defensive builds matter more. When have you ever cared about defense in Diablo 2 once you get to the end game? You just stack damage so you can leech. That's all you really need. Having something like, I don't know, actually caring about not having only 3000 health on your whirlwind barb would be fun. Actually making tank builds matter or whatever, absorbs, actually caring about stacking absorb items and having fully cap resistance, maybe even above 75% would be fun. And then there was the 12th suggestion here was potential for mob balancing. So this is a little bit again of the same thing, but basically potential for mob balance and increased difficulty would be fun. Again, to increase even faster leveling, which again some people might not like, but I would think it would be fun to increase both XP speed and difficulty, so you always kind of feel like you never really get too overpowered in an already easy game, because let's be honest, Diablo 2 is a pretty easy game once you have the end game gear and whatnot compared to other modern ARPGs. I think I also wrote this one. This is just a quick one for a better robust anti-cheat system. But here's the thing. Temp bans, I don't think it's even gonna be a thing in Diablo 2 Resurrected. I would really wonder if it would be. But if you're logging out of characters really fast, or if you change into a lot of games, this can potentially temporarily ban you up to 72 hours. I think the worst one I had was maybe 48, so I've definitely been banned for more than 24 hours, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, I hope that temporary bans is not going to be a thing, but they try to improve on the robust anti-cheat system that they already talked about. Then Spaz here on JSP. Spaz is a very kind of high-end trader on PvPer on JSP. He mentioned a potential for dedicated PvP areas. And then I wrote a little thing here with, I think an area that's more suited than that one would be nice. And then he also mentioned something like social features that will increase player engagement in PvP. And then I wrote more down here. My idea for PvP area could be a smaller area that once you enter, you have 10 seconds before you can be hit, and you can't roam around too much, else you will forfeit the duel. So my idea for a more fun PvP area in Diablo 2 would basically just be an open area with maybe some trees, maybe some water, kind of some obstacles on the map itself, but it wouldn't be a massive area, so you couldn't roam around too much. It would kind of be like an arena in World of Warcraft, but maybe a bit bigger. And then if you leave that area, you will forfeit the duel, and when you enter, you have like 10 seconds grace period to just kind of buff up call to arms, or retrieve your corpse, or whatever. I think that would be fun. It would give PvPers a more social structure if we could just get a dedicated PvP area for the game. But that would also again be content. It would be a very big suggestion for the game. This would literally be design work and whatnot, but I still think it would be like a straightforward way to give PvPers something that would actually matter. And then 15th suggestion, depending on how the economy and botting turns out, I think it's fair to talk about an increased drop rate to high runes. So I wrote this because I always thought that it's fun to kind of make overpowered builds offline in Here Is It, which I've done a lot on the channel and whatnot. But actually getting those items without trading and completely self-found and whatnot would be maddening. We're talking thousands of hours to just get like, say if you want to build my Tesla Paladin, I would need like, I don't know, 10 high runes and some really hard drops in general, but obviously I would probably have the drops before I have the high runes and whatnot. But like self-found is way too hard, and even with trading especially, and this is also where I say depending on how the economy and botting turns out, especially if Blizzard actually fixes botting and kind of slows down the economy, high runes are gonna be a lot more rare, and that is why I think high runes should perhaps be easier to get. Only down the lane we will kind of see how the economy works out with botting and whatnot. But if botting really will be minimized a lot in this game, I think it's fair to talk if high runes should have an increased drop rate. And then the 15th suggestion, this one is a bit controversial. I don't think I really care for it too much myself, but potential to change sockets without deleting the one you have inserted. And this was suggested by Philip the Donut on JSP. So this would actually interfere with like Hell Rune economy, because a lot of people have Hell Runes just to kind of delete sockets with the cube recipe and whatnot. So this would be a bit controversial. I would think it would be fun. It would maybe make changing out sockets while you're leveling end game wouldn't really matter that much, because you already can like afford Hell Runes or have your own Hell Runes. But for early game, it would be fun to be able to change out sockets more reliable without having to, use the cube recipe, which is just a Hell Rune and a town scroll portal. Now we come to a lot of suggestions that I wrote down myself, just kinda spitballing some ideas here. The 17th suggestion, a potential inventory to hold charms. And then I wrote here that if I'm correct, this was planned for, say, in Diablo 3's alpha, for instance, but was scrapped. In Diablo 3, we are apparently going to have charms and a separate inventory for it. A lot of people are talking about inventory management in Diablo 2 and holding charms in a separate inventory. I'm not really too fussed about it. For me, it wasn't that important, but I still think it would be nice to kind of have this debate about inventory management and charms. And then the big one that I always talk about, changes to Mercenary. And yeah, this is such an old thing for me. I talked way too much about this, but I just want to see, yeah, as you know, 95% of builds are Reaper's Toll on Infinity one's in-game best in slot. It's dull, which I wrote here. And then I also wrote that side note, Conviction Aura is insanely strong for both melee and casters. And that is so true. Conviction Aura is the most overpowered aura in Diablo 2. There's no doubt that this one should perhaps be, well, not nerfed, but I don't know what you can do about Conviction. I'm perhaps not smart enough to comment about it. But all I know is that Conviction Aura is insanely strong for both melee and caster. And it's why everyone uses Infinity Merc or Reaper's Toll if you have to break physical immunes or if you're a melee build. But let's be honest, there's not that many melee builds in Diablo 2 in general, so everyone just ends up using Infinity Merc. Even on like weird builds like a Trap Assassin, Fire Trap Assassin, or Frost Bow Amazon. Like there's so many, like Phoenix Assassin Strike, like there's so many builds that you maybe don't think about. Like of course everyone uses Infinity on a Lightning Sorceress, but then there's like 50 other builds that also uses Infinity Merc, which is maybe not that mainstream, but they really have to rely on it as well to be good at endgame, having that optimal performance. And then multiple people mentioned the number 19, loot filter. This is like this will also take a lot of work on their side to develop this, but it would be fun to kind of just filter out items. Already now, if you don't know about it, you can actually have spam filters in the game. You can make your own spam filters, so it would be nice if they maybe let the community make loot filters. I'm always annoyed by like the crap on screen and whatnot, so it would be nice to kind of just filter anything you want. So this would also perhaps be mod support or something if the developers themselves weren't really interested in adding their own loot filter. And then an old bug here at number 20, weapon swap glitching. A lot of people have shown this in Diablo 2 videos. I don't really know too much about itself, as I also mentioned. It's an old bug and it's been around for so long, but it's really, really overpowered. I believe that Mr. Lam has also shown weapon swap glitching, kind of detailed a little more how you can do it yourself or something. But just look up on YouTube Diablo 2 swap glitching and you know what I mean. So this is another bug that everyone should perhaps agree on that should be fixed. And then at 21, Diablo clone. Numbers might need tweaking, too soon to tell. And I say too soon to tell, just like I say it's too soon to tell about potential changes to rune words dropping more. We don't know how the economy is going to work out with Stoner Jordans and whatnot. We don't know how servers and IPs and all that sort of stuff is going to work out. But I would think that it would be more fun if the Diablo clone was spawning more regularly. This would always mean that perhaps Anelius wouldn't be that rare that anymore. Like Anelius is really, really awesome item actually. So it dropping more, being more available for trade and whatnot, maybe a bit dull. But I would think that Diablo clone maybe needs some potential look into once we know how server infrastructure in the game and the economy with Stoner Jordan works out. And then at 22, kind of just how I mentioned before with loot filter, potential for mod support. A lot of people will love this. I would also think it would be fun. We know that right now a lot of mods are already popular for a lot of RPGs or games in general. But yeah, I think a potential mod support would be fun, but again, that would be a big ask for them to do. Uncapped FPS, I should actually remove this one because I believe that right now we already know it's gonna be uncapped FPS, right? I'm actually not sure about that, but I'm at least hoping that we're gonna have above 60 FPS so we can utilize our awesome nerdy gaming screens with, I don't know, 120 or 360 hertz. Currently I'm just on 144, and if you actually don't know what hertz is, it's basically just how the refresh rate of the screen, and it really does make the game more fluid. In general, any game is gonna feel more responsive and fluid if you just have like even just 90 or 120 hertz screen. It really is awesome. So hope that the game will support above 60 FPS. And then here 24, my age-old debate about two-handers and bows. So if you watched any of my Amazon guides or videos and whatnot, you know that I really love the bow Amazon in Diablo 2. It's a fun build, it looks awesome, it's just cool, but it sucks. Its damage is just so weak, and I always thought that if they just buff base damage of all bows, X-bows, whatever in Diablo 2, at least the damage would be a little bit better. And then I have this example with, for instance, two-handers with 1000 damage when bows have like 300. And when I say bows have 300, I mean it's the damage on the item itself. Like Faith has Grand Matron bow, 15% enhanced damage. It has like 322, or was it 321? And when a two-hander has like 1000 damage on its sheet damage or stats page or whatever you want to call it, it's just not fair. So I would love to see this simple fix. It wouldn't take a lot to just buff bows, all bows in the game that way. And then a bit of a love note to all assassin builds. As I have always said, Death Sentry is the bread and butter of all assassin builds. You can't really be good on an assassin in PvM without Death Sentry, and it's a bit boring. Like, I've done a video where I made like a whirlwind assassin with like insanely good gear, like gear that is so good that you couldn't even afford it without being like, I don't know, you would have to run bots for fucking 2000 years to afford the gear, because I used a bugged Chaos or something like that, like insane gear. But even with all the gear that I had in that guide, it didn't really feel very strong until, and here comes the part, until I started using Death Sentry. Then you can just feel that the pace picks up so much more. So I would love to see some assassin love, kind of just buff all the underperforming skills in general. It would just, yeah, I would love that, because I think it's boring that every assassin has to rely on trap, but especially Death Sentry. But again, this is maybe a bit controversial. It would be balancing in classes and whatnot. And following up from the assassin, I would also love to see that Barb gets a buff. As a note here, Barb has always been very weak at early game, and even at end game it's not very strong. We all know that leveling a Barb, like getting that Act 2 normal done, killing Duriel on like level 21 in a Barb without having grinded for gear or whatever, it's actually hard. A Barb is just very weak early on, and it's not very good at end game either. Like, it needs, what would be an acceptable like item level? You would have to at least begin using something like a Glimmer Shed Axe. Nah, that's too weak. Like, it needs actually very good gear for Barb to even be good. Like, even full Immortal King's Barb is not that strong, even compared to like a medium geared Paladin Sealot or something like that. At least that's my point of view. But I do also note that Frenzy and Whirlwind are good, yes, but I would love in general just to see again Barb being buffed. Then I think flat skill damage or something like that, that would also help on early game, where they really are the worst class to level. At least I think they are the worst class to level. I don't have that much experience in it, but I would think they are the worst class to level early on. And then another controversial suggestion here at 27. Spirit Shield makes all other caster shields dull. Item balance here would be fun. So by this I mean that there are some items that are so good that you cannot play without them. And here come some classic examples like a rag belt, laying of hands gloves, or Gulliama's face or helm or whatever you want to call it. A rag belt, yes, it's an endgame item. It's a very high item level. I think it was a required level 81 to use. So maybe it's fair enough that some items that requires a high level should also always be the best in slot. But something like laying of hands just being incredibly, insanely overpowered for literally the most important parts of a game like Chaos Run and Bale Runs, it does make the options of like gearing a little bit dull in Diablo. So I would love to see other items maybe being buffed or something, but again that would also change up a lot of things. It will make maybe the game easier or something like that. But I still think that itemization and item balance would be fun to take a look at if they had the courage to do that. Then I also write here at 28, should we remove immunes or change it up just a bit? A lot of people have talked about immunes for, I don't know, 10 years now or something like that, where like even just talking about immunes is controversial in itself, because it would mean something like infinity wouldn't matter that much if there weren't immunes and whatnot. I think it would be fun though, because the sorceress by itself is already very strong. But it would, I don't know, it would maybe get too strong, the sorceress then, if there were no immunes. It's hard to tell, but I think I would love, more insight into this discussion and kind of just hearing more people about immunes. Especially I would love to know about the developers, if they have ever thought about changing up immunes in the game. And then here at 29, I write that stamina early game. So should stamina be as punishing as it is now? I wrote a great, I should have remembered the guy that was given him credit, but there was a guy in the thread that wrote a lot about why you should not be changing stamina. And it's something like stamina potion would have to be removed from the game. Shrines should be changed, like spawn location of shrines and whatnot, everything. There would be a lot of impacts if we just flat out removed stamina from the game. But whereas I'm now at least suggesting now stamina early game, should it be as punishing as it is now? So maybe instead of removing stamina from the early game or the late game, or completely removing it from the game, whatever, maybe we should just tweak it so it's not that punishing. So like after level maybe 10, 20, you should not be running out of stamina that easily. But this is again a bit of a controversial suggestion. And then here at 13, I have my own little grief, or my own little suggestion for droppable loot in trade games through the lobby. So if we get like a better robust lobby system or whatever, you should be able to make specific trade games. And these trade games should have rules such as you can't pick up items in trade games others have dropped unless in party with someone. This just means that if you have to like mule items, or you're out of room and you're really panicking for like room or whatever, you just have to do something quickly, you can drop items on the ground and they can't be picked up by someone joining the game or whatever, unless you're in party with that particular person. I think this would also make more like safety and less grief and whatnot, but of course being a dick and ninja looting and all the drama and something like that is also a part of the charm of Diablo 2. So again, a bit of a controversial thing. But this also can rely on having an even better lobby system with integration and whatnot done on that regard. And then here at 31, I'm gonna talk a little about improvements to goal. I think that goals should matter more in Diablo 2. This could be something like improvements to perhaps gambling. It could be improvements to items that you can buy at a vendor. It could also just be like maybe repair costs should go up. How I do want to mention a little bit, I've always been also annoyed about repair cost on weapons and items that have durability. So if you don't know, if you have like an enigma with say 15% increased durability, it's now gonna cost a lot more to repair. So that is of course a bit annoying. It's a lot of gold drain. Another thing I would also like to mention, that maybe it costs a little too much with the merc dying all the time if it's on the geared and whatnot, because once you reach like level 80 and put some items on him, it's probably always gonna cost 50,000 gold to revive him. And then here at 32, after cast delay or global cooldown, which is probably more known in the community in games right now, global cooldown is where you press a skill and you have to wait like a second or two before you can press that skill again. And this especially hurts underperforming builds like a fire druid in Diablo 2. So if you don't know right now, you're kind of just waiting around to use your skills as a fire druid. This makes the gameplay and your own damage that much lower. This will maybe also be a bit of a balancing thing. If they could just spam spells without delay, that would perhaps be a bit too overpowered. But I still think that the global cooldown situation on some builds in Diablo 2 should be tweaked. And then here at 33, better pathing or AI for summons and merc to avoid them getting stuck. This is such a classic thing, but I don't think this ever gonna really happen because it will probably be a lot of work, I would think, to kind of program them to be a bit smarter or whatever. Maybe it's not a lot of work, but we all know that the AI has a tendency to kind of just be stupid. This is also why Enigma is such an amazing item for PvM, to just control your own merc or control your army if you're a necromancer and whatnot, because there's so many times like if you're playing on a Java zone without Enigma, and you run like Chaos once or whatever, and the merc is not close to you, so the conviction aura doesn't hit the mobs, and thus the lightning resistance just stays. Like there's so many scenarios where the pathing is just annoying. Like take for instance, the AI should be able, or the mercenary should be able to target the target that you are killing, not just kind of go off on his own little ideas or whatever is nearby to him. It would kind of be like assist if you kind of know, like in a hunt, like if you play hunter in WoW, there you can put a pet on like assist and so on. It would be way better if you could have better AI in that regard. And then here at 34, I was talking about charge attacks like oils and whatnot. We never really use these ones. Yes, they are good at early game, maybe up to like, I don't know, Act 2. I think they actually already are bad in Act 2. You can kind of use oils for a bit of a splash AoE and kind of do a lot of damage in Act 1 and whatnot, but it quickly becomes a lot worse. And these suggestions were also credited to Junior on JSP. And then the next one Junior mentions is charges on throwing weapons could use a buff. Or yeah, like a throw barb for instance. If you're using a throw barb, even if you replenish quantity on a throw barb, it's just annoying. You run out of quantities and you have to have a spare weapon in your inventory. It's really is clunky. So I've loved charges on throwing weapons to either not matter at all, or they should at least just be a higher quantity. And then Junior also mentions here, if items have an item level, it would be nice to see what item level it has. Useful for cubing and crafting also. Again, hiding something from the game kind of makes it more like hard to understand the game as well. So that's a bit of a learning curve you kind of just remove by making something more apparent to the user. So again, this would kind of just make the game easier in a way if you kind of tell what item level an item has. But still, let's be real, it's annoying not to know what the item level is of an item. It would be fun, especially would just kind of help new players who don't really understand the game that much. So yeah, I would love to see that change actually. And so here at 37 to 43, I have a few suggestions from Neon Velocity, another YouTuber that I kind of just saw when I was kind of trying to Google and watch people's opinions and whatnot. So here's a few simple suggestions that are kind of just more focused on UI and whatnot, but I still thought that they were, a good thing to kind of bring up. So at 37, display mana life values above the globes would be nice so they're not hidden, or you can kind of just always see them. You can kind of already do this now, but yeah, I think they're just gonna change it already to something a bit better and modern in the game. So I already think this one is going to happen at 37. And then here at 38, he says that keyboard and mouse support should come for console. Would be fun. Imagine playing that. I'm not really sure if PlayStation would be that much into it. I don't know if Xbox has maybe more support for this nowadays, but it would be fun to see keyboard and mouse support for consoles. And then 39, show items on the ground at all times, not just toggle. I would think this would be awesome as well, because it is annoying to toggle the items on the ground. Of course, that removes clutter if you don't like it, but that would probably be like an interface setting that you can just remove and turn on. But it is kind of annoying to just kind of, well, hit spacebar. In my case, that's my default keybind, or my keybind in Diablo 2. And then at 40, he talks a bit about the chat box and UI should be more modern like Diablo 3. And I completely agree. The chat has always been very shitty in Diablo 2. It doesn't really give a good overview, like who talked in the game and what's going on. I would think that the chat system could be improved vastly, and it wouldn't even be that hard for them to do, because it's a chat system, like it shouldn't be that hard to kind of just get a chat like in Diablo 3 pretty much. I think that would be a fair thing to suggest. And then he also talks a bit about improvements to the minimap like modern games. I would also think that the minimap could definitely use kind of like an overhaul in Diablo 2. It would be fun to kind of just have a minimap that could maybe, like, I don't know, track things or do more modern stuff like in Diablo 3, where they have a pretty good minimap and whatnot, or like in World of Warcraft or whatever. I think it would be nice also to just kind of have a better overall map, maybe better transparency levels, like they could make it a little better to look at it and whatnot. I think that would be a fair thing to suggest, but I'm pretty sure they are already going to change quite a bit about the maps in the game. And then at 42, this is such a simple thing. I would also suggest this one myself, definitely. Offline play to be able to make ladder rune words. So right now, if you want to play unmodded Diablo 2 and make ladder rune words, you can't. You have to mod the installation something, which is easy enough to do. Some YouTubers have made tutorials about how to kind of do that. So you can make ladder rune words even if you play without mods pretty easily, but it's still very clunky, and I would just love that ladder rune words gets set free on offline play. Would be nice, definitely. And then at 43, Infinite Cow King, aka you can keep open the cow level, and I would think that would be nice as well. I never really liked like you go into an area and then you can't even kill the main boss in that area because you fear that you can't open it the next time. It's such a clunky thing. I would love if this just gets changed so we can actually feel like we can take revenge on the cow level and do a proper cow run. It would be very good. And then at 44, 45 and 46, credits to Suck Ass Stuff. I love these names. And also Buyaska. Great names these JSP people have. They're always a laugh. Anyway, 44, being able to stack more arrows, keeping you in the game loop for longer rather than potential trips to the town. That was kind of like how I wrote it down. He worded it a little bit differently, but basically I hate kind of worrying about quantities and arrows when I play on my bow Amazon, because sometimes you maybe go like a whole Chaos run without even finding arrows on the ground. Like, it can happen. It will probably be very unlikely, but it can happen. And it's also just being annoying to, like, you always feel like on a bow Amazon that you have to like look if quivers or arrows dropped on the ground, so you are kind of slowing your pace down or your gameplay down. And then of course you often do end up going to town just to pick up arrows regardless. It really is an annoying gameplay loop, as I termed it there. So yeah, being able to stack more arrows would be nice, or just increase the quantity. But it's just like the throw weapon suggestion that I had a little while ago that I also mentioned. And then at 44, areas shown on the minimap or world map should show area level. This will help newcomers with magic finding or areas challenges. I would love this as well. If you ask even people who played a lot of Diablo 2, I don't even think they know what area levels are, or at least they don't know it by hand. Like, they will have to look it up and say, okay, so the pit is that item level or area level, and the mausoleum is that area level, and so on. Like, it's just annoying and clunky. So I would love if the world map or the mini map shows item level. I don't think it would necessarily make the game easier or something like that. It would just help newcomers, or even just people who don't even know what area levels are in the game. I would really think that would be fun. And also I have a little bit about a area challenge. What I also mean by area challenge is that a lot of people then realize when they go into like the pits or whatever, that they actually think that this area actually is harder. Why is that harder compared to the area that was just in? And that would be clearly shown because of the area level. And then lastly, at 46, socketed items could display number of sockets on the name, just a little minor quality of life feature, but I think it would also be kind of nice just to kind of make visual presentation of rune words a bit easier. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Almost 50 damn suggestions. This took a little bit of a while to just go through, so this is definitely gonna be a bit of a long video. Now, I would really love if you could add to this list. I know there's going to be like 50 more suggestions that we could add, but at least I think now these almost 50 suggestions are something that maybe some of them are controversial, but I think that also some of them should be picked up by the developers. So I think that we should try to maybe see like what are actual changes that we want and what should be implemented maybe later on if there was going to be any changes. Because as I mentioned at the start of the video, we shouldn't expect any changes at all. Blizzard or Vicarious Visions developers, whatever, should just do whatever the hell they want with the game. But if they were going to make like a patch 1.15 or 1.16 or whatever it's gonna be named as, I would really love if there was going to be changes that were grounded in like suggestions from the actual community that's going to play the game. Because we know a lot about this game. We have played this game for many years, so why not? Why shouldn't they listen to us as well? Because some of these things that I was talking about in the video, I didn't even know they were a bug or they even was a thing. But a lot of people out there really know a lot about this game that maybe even the developers haven't thought about. Probably unlikely, but I still think that could happen actually. But I don't want to make the video that much longer. So thank you so much for watching, everyone, and have a good one.